my name is Yeşim, and today I'll be talking to you guys about the American prison system and recent trends within it, as well as their effectiveness on recidivism rates. To define, recidivism is the tendency of a convicted criminal to reoffend. And are you aware that within 3 years, 66% of incarcerated people will be rearrested, and half of those rearrests will result in time served? This is according to a Harvard Political Review, and although this may not concern you or your family, an independent study conducted by the University of Cornell has shown that 117 million American adults have immediate family members, either previously or currently incarcerated, and that this problem is internationally recognized. As we can see here in this prison policy initiative graph, we have individual states from the United States lined with other countries, as well as their incarceration rates in millions of people listed. And countries such as Brazil do not have the same incarceration rates as states, even Ohio and Delaware. Brazil has triple the amount of violent crimes compared to the United States. Turkey is currently undergoing a civil war and massive internal conflicts. These countries have nowhere near the amount of incarcerated people as individual states. And with this being said, a look at recent trends within the American prison system and how they have led to this increase in recidivism rates will be analyzed today. And this will be done through highlighting a look at a shifting in principles from the mid-1970s to now, and a lack of peer support after prison, as well as an implementation of even more private prisons since the year 2000. And I would like to start by saying that it wasn't always like this, and that from the 1930s to the 1970s, the American crime rate was noted by a period of stagnation, and that it wasn't until the late 1970s into the 80s that we found this increase in crime. And according to a 2001 paper posted by the University of Maryland, dubbed Sentencing and Corrections of the 21st Century, there was a balance between four main principles before the 1980s, and this was a balance between rehabilitation, retribution, deterrence, and incarceration. Rehabilitation noted the ability of one to not reoffend or recommit the crime. Retribution, paying back to society for the crime committed. Deterrence, meaning a punishment would be enough to keep someone from committing the crime, as well as incarceration, referring to keeping society safe while this person serves out their sentence. And these four main philosophies were balanced by two guiding principles, and those were that people committed crime either due to environmental or psychological reasons, and that they committed crimes due to environmental reasons, such as growing up in a place where crimes committed is normalized. This is a recognition of certain areas and neighborhoods being more predisposed to crime, and also psychological, meaning that this is an illness that needs to be corrected. However, both found the state to be responsible to help this individual correct their behavior. And this paper, published in 2001, found that these sentiments were all replaced by this tough on crime notion that really has been propelled by both political campaigns back then as well as now. A Times article entitled "State Prison Sentences in the U.S. Are Getting Longer, but Not Necessarily Keeping Us Safer" also corroborated this stance, as well as a statistic from our prison policy initiative stating that 70% of convictions are met with confinement, and that once we have these populations of people that have been incarcerated, there isn't a lot of support for them, leading us to our second point, that programs are not very accessible or available to people both within and outside of prison. A paper published in the National Library of Medicine stated that a lot of these peer support groups tend to be goal-orientated or very religious, and therefore not really serving the purpose of simply being a safe space for these people that have all had this shared experience, both within and out of prison, both dealing with what happened and reintegrating back into society. And that a lack of these support groups is indicative to the lack of support that these systems have for the people once they exit. And to conclude, the increase in private prisons from the mid-2000s to now is indicative of a conflict of interest between rehabilitation rates and the private prisons, because the private prisons sign contracts dictated on the number of people within their prisons. So it is directly counterintuitive to their contracts to have these people no longer be in prison. This was studied by the Academy of Justice at Arizona State University. And to conclude, fundamental shifts over the past 50 years in the way that we view our incarcerated people, as well as the role of incarceration, are important, and we need to look at these outcomes of these actions, as well as our response to those. And that recent trends within the American prison system, such as harsher prison sentences, an increase in privatized prisons, as well as support groups, have led to an increase in recidivism rates. Thank you. Any questions?